All right, everyone, welcome to the final installment on the Baseball Challenge tutorials. In this tutorial, we're going to add some bases to our baseball diamond. We'll add a pitcher's mound and a pitching stripe right here of mud, and add some effects to our mud. So let's start off with getting this baseball mound, pitcher's mound centered. We'll click in the vertical ruler, drag over, and create a center line for our mound. Then I'm going to take the ellipse tool and center up my ellipse for the pitcher's mound. Maybe a little big. Let's make it just a little smaller. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to make sure I have my mud layer selected, and I'm going to get the mud in my color palette, and then simply use my fill bucket tool, make sure it's set to fill hole selection, and drop that in. Now I'm going to go to my rectangle select and make the pitching stripe. That looks good. Same thing, fill with my fill bucket. Looks good. Now let's add a sort of a speckled effect for the mud. Turn our selection off. And we're going to use dodge and burn again, just like we did in our grass. This time I'm going to use a sponge brush that has sort of these flakes in it. And I'm going to set my tool, my dodge and burn tool, to burn first. And just work my way. I'm gonna zoom in on so you can see this in one section. So we'll zoom in right here on third base. Go back to the burn tool. And we're just going to burn in some spots on our mud. And then we're going to flip to dodge and put in some lighter shades. And now we sort of have this texturized feel on our mud. And of course, we could go all the way around. I'm not going to take the time to do that, but you get the idea. And now we're going to work on our bases. So our bases, we need a guide on our bases. We're going to turn the eyes off on these two layers. And we're going to go to our paths tool. I'm going to zoom in on first base. Go back to the paths tool, and I'm going to path out first base. Hold Control on your PC key or Command on your Mac and make your first dot your last dot, and then you can adjust your nodes. Just like that. Now let's add a layer for bases. So we'll click Add New Layer, Bases, and make a selection from our path. And we'll choose some white and drop that in. Okay. Now let's go back. I want you to notice that the path is actually still there. Turn the selection off. And we could still choose our path tool, and maybe we want to outline our base. We could go to stroke the path right here to outline the base. First, I'd want to get a darker color for the stroke. Go to stroke the path, and we set this. The line color is going to be solid, and that's going to come from our foreground right here. We'll just make it 1 pixel and say stroke. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's choose another tool, turn that path eye off. Okay, and if we wanted to, we could do some other things, like maybe we would burn our edge to round the corners of the base. Okay, so that's kind of how you would do that. We're just darkening up that outline right there. So you could use your burn tool to do that. Now, if we wanted to get this inner part to be sort of curved, let me show you one more little trick there. We'll go back to our path and we'll bring it in just a little bit. Just like that. And go back and stroke this path one more time, but this time we want to make a base outline. So we'll add a layer bases outline, and we'll stroke that path, this time with a lighter gray. So notice it's a light gray. Let's turn this path eye off. Okay. And we can go back to this layer and do a little bit of a blur trick. So we'll go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Okay, and that's going to pull up our Gaussian blur. And you probably are not going to be able to see this, and we're just going to blur a little bit, say OK. And it's just going to cause that gray that we added to be really faint and look a little bit 3D around the edge right there. Okay, so now that we have our one base made, we can combine our base outline and our bases. So I'm going to right click on the base outline and merge it down. And now I can take my rectangle select, simply outline my first base, copy, do a select none, and paste. And I have a second base that I can move up here to second base. So very quickly you can see I can make all three bases. And we'll paste one more time. First we have to anchor this floating selection. We'll paste again. And we have another base that we can move to third base. Just like that. We'll anchor this floating selection one more time. And you get the floating selection anytime you do a copy and paste of an object. It's going to give you a floating selection that you need to anchor. Okay, let's turn our eyes back on. Back on our AstroTurf, we'll zoom out. And you can see that we have our bases. We've got a nice faint shadow around them. All we would need to do is make home plate, finish up our mud texturing, and that would be it. Until next time.